You had a bit of a commentary last week on electric vehicles, and we had a comment about that. You weren't overly bright about your opinion of them. Fiona Baker left a comment and she said, wrong. Stop discouraging EVs. There's 10 positives for every doubter. We're absolutely getting there with renewables and EVs in agriculture and mining. The grid is now 50% renewables.
No, it's
Get
not.
an EV, she said in caps. Still 25% of the cost to charge at a station compared to petrol. My EV charger is up a steep hill. Easy installation of the fast charger outlet. Love it.
Okay, well, that's great for that person, and I congratulate them. But their data is completely wrong. I'll show you why it's wrong. I just actually literally took this off. So this is the official data from the Australian government, right? So this is Australia's primary energy use by source. Check out the chart on the right there. You can ignore liquid fuels, that's oil, but oil is our biggest. We're most dependent on oil for starters, right? Go and look at the coal in blue. Go and look at gas in red, and go and look at renewables in green. Does that look like 50% to you?
Mm,
Doesn't look. Renewables are less than 10% of Australia's energy use, right?
mm.
So this whole notion that renewables are 50% is fundamentally wrong. It's empirically wrong. That's the data. That's the data from the Australian Energy Update 2025. All right. So is that 50%?
No.
No. So anyway, case closed on that. And the other point is at the population level, all those arguments fall down because if everyone was to drive, okay, for starters, if we replaced every single passenger vehicle in the country with an EV magically like that, so we could just go like that, we could Thanos it and turn every single um, internal combustion car in the country into an EV, we'd only save 25% of our liquid fuels. All
Yeah.
right. And it wouldn't do much on diesel. Diesel's the thing that I care about. I don't care so much about petrol. Petrol's an inconvenience. Diesel is the lifeblood of the economy. Now, electric buses, electric trucks, etc., aren't particularly good. I'll tell you why they're not good. It's got no range and they're incredibly heavy and you get less payload. I'll explain the notion of payload to this person. All right. So trucks, B double trucks, for example, are limited to 85. I think it's 85 gross tons. Right. So that means that they can only weigh 85 tons, and they can only weigh 85 tons because they damage the road. A battery powered truck weighs that the battery takes up a hell of a lot of share of that 85 tons because batteries are incredibly heavy. Right. A Tesla Model Y, I'm just using the car example now, weighs just over 2 tons. The battery alone is half a ton. The similar weight of an internal combustion car of the same size is about 1,600 kilograms. Right. The batteries are incredibly heavy. So the heavier the battery in a truck that is got an 85 ton limit, I think it's 85 tons, it could be, maybe it's 80, but I'm just using that example, means you get less payload because you can't carry as much stuff because the battery's taking more of that tonnage maximum weight that you're allowed. So you get less payload, which means you're less efficient. You got to have more trucks operating to get the same amount of freight. Secondly, the range on an electric powered truck is crap. So, what are we going to do? You've got a truck. A lot of our trucks drive from Melbourne to Sydney, for example, right? So what are they going to do? They're going to drive 300 to 400 kilometers with a massive battery that weighs over 10 tons, and they're going to go and park and they're going to charge it for 3 hours, and then they're going to go on the road again, drive another 400 kilometers, charge it for 3 hours, or whatever it is. Probably take longer than 3 hours. We're talking a ginormous battery here. The efficiency costs are just too big. Now around the city, yeah, you can run little EVs around the city, but you can't run 24/7, right? So a lot of delivery trucks need to be run on, they need to have be operating for massive amount of hours of the day. You can't have the downside of having to charge these things, and the bigger the vehicle, the longer it takes to charge because the battery's bigger. It doesn't work, and there's a reason why virtually every single Uber driver in the country doesn't drive an EV. They drive usually a Toyota Camry hybrid because hybrids you don't get any of these drawbacks, right? You don't need to change the electricity grid. You don't need to upgrade the infrastructure. You don't need to put in, these chargers everywhere. You don't need to put new substations and everything with high capacity, wires and extra generators and all this sort of stuff so you can force through more electricity because the current grid is not built for this stuff at scale, right? It's okay if you can park it at home and you can park it overnight. You can drive it overnight over 12 hours and whatever. That's fine. But at the population level, if everyone has EVs, you're going to need Shell service stations with electric Bowsers, right? Instead of having a fuel Bowser, you need electric Bowsers. The problem with that is if you go to a Shell service station, right, with an internal combustion car, you can get in and out in about 5 minutes. Right? It takes you 5 minutes to fill up a 60-litre tank or whatever it is, and you're off. Right? So you can get a whole bunch of vehicles through there. And if you've got 10 Bowsers, it doesn't matter if you've got 10 of those Bowsers working at once. It doesn't slow the flow of fuel into your car. It doesn't slow everything down. If you've got 10 electric vehicles charging at the same time, like if you have one vehicle charging and nine electric Bowsers aren't working, right, you get pretty fast charge, right? Because you got power coming through. If you've got 10 of them, you get 1/10 the charge in each one of them. And in order to upgrade the whole system so that you can get more electric throughput, you need to spend an enormous and astronomical amount of money literally upgrading the entire energy grid, all the way back from the generators through the substations, through to the service stations with much more high capacity cables, and which it's going to cost billions, like hundreds of billions of dollars to do this stuff, right? It doesn't work. And the other problem is you then have the efficiency problem, because even with the fastest charger, but I'm talking realistically here, there's theoretical, oh, you can charge in 5 minutes if you have this absolutely enormous thing that is not possible. Our energy grid can't take it. It'll cost too much money. But, at best, you'll be able to charge in about half an hour, right? Well, who's got half an hour to sit around to go to a Shell service station? And then obviously, if it takes you half an hour, you can only get 1/6 of the cars through that you can through a petrol thing. It doesn't work at the population level. None of this works. So this is why I'm such a fan of hybrids. And I visited Japan last year, and about 90% of the cars there are all hybrids. They're all Toyota hybrids or Honda hybrids. And hybrids are fantastic because you get basically off a 40-litre tank, you can get 1,000 kilometres around the city. And that's why all the Uber drivers drive them, because you don't have any downside from charging. You don't get range anxiety. You get all the benefits of regenerative braking, all that sort of stuff, which is a free kick, free lunch, which you don't get with a regular internal combustion car, but you do get with EVs and hybrids, which recharges your battery, right? You get all these benefits without having all the downsides of having to completely rewire your entire energy system. So we should be pushing for hybrids. It's all about efficiency, right? It's not about EVs versus internal combustion or whatever. It's about efficiency. And if you want to minimize cost, and you don't want to have to spend hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars, if not $1 trillion, rewiring your entire electricity network and having to put in more generation and all this sort of stuff, we're better off going down the hybrid route. And for all the environmental warriors out there, John Cadogan, who's an engineer, but he does the auto expert, he did a great analysis recently. And he found out that basically if you have a pure electric vehicle versus a Toyota RAV4 hybrid, so you'd say get a Tesla Model Y versus a Toyota RAV4 hybrid, they're basically the same size cars. The Model Y is a lot heavier because of the battery. The environmental benefits are actually slightly better with the RAV4 because the fact of the matter is most people are going to charge their cars overnight, which means they're burning coal. And if you're in Victoria, you're burning brown coal, which emits carbon. Whereas if you have a RAV4, you burn 4 litres of fuel per 100 kilometres, which is incredibly efficient. So the carbon benefits are about the same of both. And it costs more resources to make the EV than it does the Toyota hybrid because it's a lot heavier and a lot more resources goes into the battery. And I'd argue it won't last as long. Like Toyotas are incredibly well-engineered cars, and you can, provided you do your oil changes, your basic maintenance, you're probably at 20 years out of them. And, one of the things I do whenever I catch an Uber is I ask the drivers about their cars, and usually it's a Toyota Camry, right? And I get the same story every time. Basic maintenance, just oil changes, hundreds of thousands of kilometres done, basically 1,000 litres off a tank. The tanks are 45 litres, but, you never run a tank down empty, so you're probably using 40 litres of fuel. Incredibly efficient, great cars, blah, blah, blah. And the last guy, when I came back from my 30-year school reunion, I was in his Camry, and I asked him, oh, mate, how many Ks you done this? And he goes, oh, I'm up to 480,000. I couldn't believe it. He had it since 2015, Toyota Camry hybrid. The car was driving beautifully. So have you had any repairs? No, still good. Original battery, whatever. This guy's done 500,000 Ks in his thing. And there's a reason why Uber drivers generally don't drive EVs, the hardcore Uber drivers, because they don't want to spend the downtime. They don't want to drive around and go, oh, shit. Sorry, I swore. Oh, damn. I've got to, I've got to stop seeing passengers now because now I've got to sit around and recharge my car for an hour.
Recharge the
You
car.
don't have to
Yeah.
do any of this stuff with hybrids, but you still get the efficiency benefits. You don't have
Mm,
to rewire the entire grid. That's the sort of thing we should go. Australia should be going for efficiency, right?
mm,
And if you want an EV, good, go for it. But we shouldn't be trying to force this at the population level, which is what our policymakers are trying to do. They're
mm.
basically trying to tax, EVs, combustion vehicles, including hybrids, out of existence with their national vehicle efficiency schemes. They're also, um, you know, blowing billions of dollars a year trying to subsidise people into EVs through the fringe benefit tax schemes and offering all these incentives. They don't pay any road use fees because every litre of petrol or diesel you fill up, you pay 50 something cents a litre in excise, which is basically a carbon tax, by the way. So we are paying for the pollution.
Mm,
EVs don't pay any of this stuff. So the government is trying to drive people into this one technology when I'd
mm.
argue the better technology is to drive people into your Toyota hybrids, which are
Yeah.
they've been going since the late 1990s.
Mm,
They've got a great track record in history. Virtually everyone in Japan drives them, and they get double the fuel efficiency of a regular internal combustion car with the benefits of regenerative braking and all this other stuff. And the big kicker is we don't have to rewire the entire electricity network, which
yeah.
saves a lot of money. We can just keep what we've got.